Today, I have a very special interview. The internet has described my next guest as the leader of the Proud Boys group, the mastermind behind the January 6th Capitol riot, someone who deserved to be in jail the rest of his life. He was sentenced for 22 years for January 6th, even though he wasn't there and there was no grand scheme to overthrow the government. Enrique Tarrio, thank you so much for joining me today.
Stephen, thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it. I'm actually coming to you from a very special place, the United States Capitol today. So we're out here. I actually wanted to come out and take a look at the famous building that, at least for once, that they said that I was trying to break into to overthrow the United States government, which I think is ridiculous. It sounds cool, but it's just simply not true.
Yeah, you must truly be free if they're letting you near the Capitol. Help me understand, what is the Proud Boys group, and why did they believe that you were there to overthrow the government?
So to tell you what the Proud Boys group is, and the thing is that if you had another Proud Boy here to describe what the Proud Boys is, you might get a different response because we're not a focus group. The only thing that we could all agree on is that the group is a fraternity and that our only goal is to make better men. How do you make better men? You make better brothers, better husbands, better neighbors, better nephews, sons. And I think that's why we're such a threat. We're not a group that gives a crap about your race, your religion. As long as you believe that the West is the best, that Western civilization is the best, and you're born a man, you can join the Proud Boys. And we're not a political group, but we do have our cultural issues with what's going on in America and what's been going on in America for a very long time, specifically in 2016. And then one of the reasons why I guess the mainstream media hates us so much is that when we go to an event, we will defend Trump supporters from any harm they might receive from groups like Antifa and BLM, which we don't see them around anymore as much. Maybe they'll rebrand in the future. But for the most part, I think that's why they hate us, because we protect your everyday Americans.
Okay. So on January 6th, this Stop the Steal group puts together this massive event. Over 1 million people pour into Washington, D.C. It's not President Trump's event, but he is the keynote speaker. He speaks. He says we're going to peacefully and patriotically march down to the Capitol, make our voices heard. Next thing, chaos breaks out, and you're being blamed as like the center of this overthrow, this insurrection, and they're saying you're going to go to jail for 22 years. My understanding is you weren't even in Washington, D.C.
I'm the only one out of 1,600 defendants, and they would have had a lot more defendants had they stolen the election in 2024. But I was the only defendant that was not there that day. And I was charged with one of the harshest crimes that an American can be charged with, which is seditious conspiracy. It's an act of sedition, which is just one step under treason. Honestly, I believe if they would have been able to charge me with treason, they would have. But what happened that day was a culmination of a lot of things gone wrong. I blame a lot on the Capitol Police and not providing enough law enforcement in front of the Capitol that day. Two, I think that Mike Pence should have done the right thing and should have at least asked the right questions, and he didn't. And I think, look, I don't condone any violence of any sort. Anybody, I've said this a million times. If you put your hands on a cop, I think that you should be charged with it. But that's not what we saw that day. People that just trespassed were getting multi-decade sentences for just being there and for supporting the president. And he did say, you're 100% right. The president did say to go over there peacefully. And that's what we were all there to do. Where that went wrong, there was multiple instances where that went wrong. But again, I think I laid the blame on law enforcement.
Okay. I didn't look this up. I don't know if you or your lawyer looked this up, but in the last 50, 100 years, how many America-loving patriots have been accused of sedition?
I think the number is, if I'm not mistaken, the number is 14, and all 14 share something in common. It was all for January 6th.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Okay. So
Yeah.
this is not a charge that regularly gets put on
No,
people.
it's been charged before. I wouldn't say that they were America-loving people before, because there was a bombing and a shooting at the Capitol back in the 50s. And I haven't really looked at the case, but I would probably think that that does constitute sedition. But none of us, in my case, were charged with any violence or anything like that. So, but yeah, it was us. It was us that were charged, and we were charging properly. And even in my case, there was 4 other Proud Boys that were charged. They'll tell, if they're on this show, Stephen, they'll tell you themselves. They'll be like, "Hey, look, yeah, fine. If they wanted to hit me with trespassing, fine. I would have taken the charge." But again, I say that wasn't the case. That's not what happened with these cases. They overcharged them. And I'm actually happy that they went above and beyond overcharging these cases, because one thing that it did is it showed America what our justice system truly was for those 4 years and the previous 8 years of Obama. It didn't exist. It didn't exist. To get a trespassing charge and turn it into one of the most disgusting charges, sedition. I think they created such a fake narrative that not even your everyday American can believe that.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. Now that time has gone by, you've dealt with the justice system. You've seen all the information that has come out. Do you believe that this was a coordinated attack on the Capitol with bad actors mixed in with a bunch of MAGA Trump supporters, or did this happen organically based on emotion? Capitol Police firing percussion grenades into the audience, shooting people with rubber bullets out of nowhere. What do you make of all of it now that time has gone by?
So I think it is a culmination of a lot of things. Like I said, I think it has to do. It all has to do with it. All boils down to the president of the United States, to President Donald Trump. They wanted to find a way to get him. They couldn't get them, so they went after his supporters, right? And they went up the line. If you look at how they indicted, they started from the bottom, and then they went all the way up, and then I said it myself. I said, if they catch Stuart Rhodes, which at the time I didn't know he was on Capitol grounds before he was arrested. If they catch Stuart Rhodes for being on there, I'm just one. I'm a skip away from getting arrested. And if I'm arrested, it's not a skip away to the president of the United States, because if they caught me, and look, I wholeheartedly, I'll be honest here. I did celebrate the things that happened that day, on January 6th, as I saw them. For that, if I'm guilty, then you know what? Take me into prison right now and I'll do my time. But they caught me for my words for celebrating it. And they, they, they could have caught the president just as easy for the same thing. Another thing that a lot of people don't know about the president Trump's indictment, they called it the January 6th case. It wasn't the January 6th case, because he was never. It was never about what the events of what happened on January 6th. If you read that indictment, that federal indictment, they caught him on like some white collar paperwork stuff, right? Read through that indictment, and what happened on Capitol grounds that day has nothing to do with what he was charged, because they knew that was the easiest way to charge them. They tried to turn me against the president in order to include the events of on the Capitol grounds that day, and I refused.
Guy, let me ask you this. It's since come out that the FBI played some role in January 6th, whether it was paid informants or undercover people, some level of involvement. Did the FBI infiltrate your Proud Boys group or try to set anybody up? What was the involvement with the FBI and your organization?
So yes, they did. They did infiltrate my group. They had, from what we know, it was 26 paid and unpaid informants that were on at the Capitol that day. Now, the funny part about it is, usually informants inform on things that are happening and bad things that are happening. And the funny part about my case is that every single one of those informants said that we did not plan to storm the Capitol. So when the prosecutors, put their case together, I mean, obviously informants should be like the keynote for their case. You know how many informants, FBI informants, they brought to our trial, which lasted 6 months?
No.
0.
Wow.
But let's go a step further. So we said, wait a second, why wouldn't you want to bring them? Because it's supposed to, you're here to seek the truth. So we said, instead of you bringing them, we'll bring them. So we did bring them with a lot of hardship to find out who these people are, because these are classifieds. Um, when we put that person on the stand, we happened to find a video of this paid FBI informant. And guess what? He was part of a major breach at the Capitol. I don't know if you remember on the scenes, one of the scenes where it's like an aluminum garage door is closing. It's inside the Capitol.
Okay.
He's actually the gentleman that stopped that garage door from closing. He put a pedestal in the way of that garage door closing, giving protesters access to a part of the Capitol that they didn't have. And this is all in my transcripts. One thing I hope with everything in me is that the president goes ahead and declassifies those documents, because those documents can't be. It's not just the DOJ; they're actually classified documents. I know Bongino and Cash had recently said that they're going to be exposing some of these FBI informants in their report to Congress and to the public. And I'm hoping they do that, but it also needs a stroke of a pen from the president. Or, as we saw with the classified documents case, all he has to do is really just ask to declassify these documents.
Okay. Let me clarify something, because I think I understand this, but I just want you to clarify. So they could have brought these 26 secret FBI people to slam dunk your case and other cases, and yet they pretended that they didn't exist. They had no involvement. They weren't part of the violence. They weren't part of the breach. They weren't part of getting into restricted parts of the Capitol. You guys had to seek them out.
No, wait, hold on. It gets even better than that. We didn't just have to seek them out. We had to pull teeth. They did not. The judge had to order them to tell us all of these informants, and they begrudgingly did so. And we find out that there was a lot more of them that they hid from us. So we put it in front of the judge again. And the way that it works is under the classified documents, my attorneys had to go to an FBI field office, specifically the one in Miami, and they had to not bring any laptops, no computers, no nothing. They were given a pencil and a notepad, and with a pencil and a notepad, they were supposed to get all the information. And it was so classified that they couldn't even tell me the names of these individuals. They just had to tell me what their acts were so I could kind of remember if I knew any of them. And what's even funnier, one of them picked me up from jail on January 5th when I got released for burning the Black Lives Matter banner. He was the chauffeur. I didn't even call him to come pick me up. He just showed up to come pick me up.
Okay, I feel like they weren't leaving breadcrumbs. They were laying the breadcrumb. They were like trying to walk you into a trap.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh,
and all this came out. That's why I'm happy that we went to trial. And I don't give anybody any crap that took a plea deal. I mean, nobody stood a chance. With a DC jury, nobody stood a chance. So they're coming to get me.
Oh gosh.
Hold on, let me stand over here so I don't. That's an ambulance.
Okay.
DC's very, very hot right now with what happened yesterday with those two members of the consulate.
Israel, yeah.
And so it's been very, very. Security is very high, and there's people with a lot of emotions here today. With that being said, we had to pull teeth to find out who these informants were. And I think as time progresses, I think that we'll start seeing the truth behind January 6th. Another thing I think that Pam Bondi needs to start aggressively seeking these cases. We didn't vote for Donald Trump to get cheaper eggs. We voted to put in prison those people that weaponize our justice system. And as you saw with some of these January 6 cases, they took almost 4 years to get to trial or get sentenced. And if we don't start picking these people off soon, like start arresting these people that weaponize the government, they're going to use delay tactics to see if the next administration will have a friendly DOJ. So I'm very patient, but I think my patience is wearing thin because the people that did this to us, they must pay. They need to pay, and they need to. And by pay, a lot of the media likes to say, "Oh, he's calling for violence." I'm not calling for violence. I'm calling for accountability, which is what we voted for. We voted for law and order. We voted to stop the weaponization of our government, and I think that it needs to start soon.
Yeah. I mean, just what you shared with me, I think my audience is going to be shocked to find out that the FBI and the DOJ, they were trying to pretend that there weren't these FBI people as bad actors. I mean, you could be doing this interview from jail just based on them hiding stuff during discovery, which is illegal.
Yes, yes. There's exculpatory evidence that wasn't given to us until after sentencing. One of them was a police officer an actual police officer that was embedded in the marching group, which could have given a lot of insight coming into January 6th.
Yeah.
And to
Okay.
our case, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. I don't really know what to make of it, but I've seen videos of Nancy Pelosi saying this was my fault, saying I was waiting for this, waiting for Trump, that she was responsible. Kash Patel swore under oath that President Trump had offered the National Guard, and Pelosi, Schumer, General Mark Milley, Capitol Police, Mayor Muriel Bowser, they all rejected that. My feeling is that none of this would have happened with the National Guard present. But what are your thoughts on those videos of Nancy Pelosi saying that she was accountable?
I think at the end of the day, they are in charge of the security at the Capitol grounds. You know, I think that the National Guard should have been there to begin with, but even if it wasn't, um, if a lot, here's another thing that a lot of people don't know. If you've ever been to the Capitol, and I'm perfect that I'm here now, this is a very big. The grounds for U.S. Capitol is very, very big, and they only had on the west side of the Capitol, which was where the first breach happened. There was only 5 law enforcement officers to cover the entire west side of the Capitol. I mean, if you take a look at the crowd here now, right, this is a rather big crowd for the Capitol. And imagine only 5 law enforcement officers um, protecting the entire east side, because I'm on the east side right now of the Capitol. It would be impossible to secure the Capitol with 5 law enforcement agents. So I think that what should have happened is that security should have been beefed up from the beginning. And I think that Nancy Pelosi, this is exactly what she wanted. She wanted the mayhem to happen that day so she could point at the president, so she could get him impeached to stop him from running in 2024. But obviously, they overplayed their hand, and they thought Trump was out of commission. They thought he was never going to run again, and they thought America had forgotten about him. And there's no one that forgot about the president. Nobody forgot about the president, especially those 1,600 people that had to go what they went through. We never forgot the president, and we've been um, very loyal to the president. You know, we're loyal to the Constitution first and foremost, but we know that our president is loyal to the Constitution. That's why we love him so much.
Yeah. I saw a video of the crowd in front of the Capitol. They're very calm,
Yes.
and then out of nowhere, you see a police officer throw a percussion grenade behind the group. It goes off, boom, Everyone panics, and because it's behind them, they run away from the noise. They run towards the Capitol.
Yeah.
And then I saw, you see when people start running, they start shooting these rubber bullets. There's a video of one of the bullets going right through a guy's cheek.
Yes.
These are not people that were being violent. They were not breaking in. They were panicked by a noise behind them. And then you see one police officer say to another one, "This isn't working. For every one we deter, 10 more are agitated."
Yes.
Do you think that this led to some of the movement towards the Capitol?
I think that there was multiple instances of that, and that instance that you're talking about, yes. So when you use riot control devices, like flash grenades, or I forgot what they have another type that shoots these rubber pellets out in all directions, and then they have what you saw that went through. I believe his last name is Black, his cheek. Those were actual firearms that fired rubber bullets. And when you use those munitions, they're supposed to be used at the front of the crowd. Okay, that's so you could push the crowd back. So what was happening is that they had they were on a perch position higher than the crowd, and they were shooting into the back of the crowd. And if you see some of the surveillance footage from the top of the Capitol, you'll notice, and you'll see that you're talking about. You'll see the crowd push forward towards them because they're getting shot from behind. These are all things that we saw through our trial, and we had the longest trial, not only in for January 6th, but we had the longest trial in the District of Columbia, the history of the District of Columbia. So we got to see a lot, and again, I'm very happy that we went to trial because we got to expose so much. And one of the biggest charges that they got was called the 18 USC 1512, which is obstructing an official proceeding. And we saw through the Supreme Court that charge was illegally used by the Department of Justice. And it was the charge that got you those 20 years. It was one of the charges that got me my 22-year sentence. And when those were thrown out, that's just to show you how corrupt these judges are. Even with those charges thrown out and the maximum going from 20 years, sometimes to 5 to 7 years, the judges would only take off about 3 months off the sentence just to comply with the Department of Justice, and they would stack all the other cases together, granting them the same amount of time. This happens in one of the cases. His name's Guy Reffitt. He originally got 7 years, and the Supreme Court decided that 1512 did not apply to Reffitt, which was his highest charge. He went back for resentencing, and the corrupt judge only took 3 months off of his 7-year sentence.
I'm starting to realize with how many of these federal judges are blocking our president.
It's a judicial coup.
Yeah, it is. It's a judicial coup. That's a great way of putting it. In our final minutes, let me ask you this. So what were you thinking and feeling when you got word that President Trump was signing the order to get everybody released so that they could move on with their life?
To be honest, Stephen, my mood did not change on January 20th when they told me that I was going to get released, because I already knew I was going to get released. My mood changed on November 4th when I knew that the president of the United States, the 47th president, was going to be Donald J. Trump, because I know that he's a president that keeps his promises, promises made, promises kept. And I knew that day was a day of my freedom. The day of my release was actually Election Day 2024. A lot of people don't know this either, is the president mentioned that he was going to pardon January 6ers in the first 9 minutes of his presidency. I think that he did better than 9 minutes. So if you remember the day correctly, on Inauguration Day, he swore on that Bible on noon on January 20th. And he was supposed to go to the Kennedy Center at 5 p.m. to supposedly sign these pardons and all his executive orders of that day. Let me tell you something, that was all smoke and mirrors. The president, after he swore on that Bible, he had already sent the Bureau of Prisons the emails with the pardons and with the order to release us on that same day. So the president of the Bureau of Prisons received those emails at 1:30 p.m. Okay, an hour and a half after his inauguration. And if you remember correctly, it did take him some time to leave the Capitol Rotunda, which is sitting right behind me, when he was inaugurated the 47th president of the United States. So I believe that it took less than 9 minutes for him to sign those pardons and release us all. He didn't
Wow.
leave a single one behind. And he, listen, to his benefit, something that he said is he was going to look at these cases one by one, and that's exactly what he did. He looked at these cases one by one, and in every single case, he saw that justice wasn't served with how we were politically persecuted, and the only solution to Joe Biden's weaponized Department of Justice was to issue pardons to 1,600 individuals, minus 14, which their sentences were commuted, but without sourcing anything. I am pretty sure that those 14 individuals will be pardoned very, very soon.
Okay, that's good to know. Okay, in our final minutes, you're in Washington D.C. You're working on this documentary. What is that documentary, and when does it come out?
So I can't talk much about it because I'm under NDA right now, but I
Okay.
will tell you that it is coming out for the winter. It's going to be a very interesting documentary. It's going to be under the banner of my new network called War Boy Studios. Since my release, we've started 2 community projects. One of them being the War Boy Studios, which is a podcast network with about 14 different shows.
Okay.
We will be expanding that to 24 shows next week. And our second project is our 1776.shop, which is also a conservative based like Amazon, where you sell conservative merchandise. But it will be under the banner of that studio, and it is a full feature documentary included with a mini series, and it does have to do with the events of January 6th.
Okay, interesting. Well, I don't want you to break your NDA. Just like we wanted President Trump to keep his word, we want you to keep your word. Enrique, I have followed your journey. It's a pleasure to meet you. I'm so glad that President Trump was able to keep his word. I hope something like that never happens to anybody else ever again. If people want to follow you online, where can I point them towards?
Okay, so the only method of social media that I have, because I am banned on everything, is X, or as us old whippersnappers call it, Twitter.
Okay.
You could follow me. My handle is at Noble1. That's ONE Noble1 on Twitter. And you could support me there. If you're a January 6er and I don't follow you, shoot me a DM. I'll shoot you a follow back. I retweet January 6ers all the time. And then for our network, you could follow us at War Boy Studios.
War Boy Studios. Okay, great. Well, thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your time in Washington, D.C., and we'll be on the lookout for that documentary.
Thank you, Stephen. I appreciate it. And when you're ever down here in South Florida, well, not here in South Florida, because this place is garbage. Nobody works here, by the way. But when you ever find yourself in South Florida, I'd love to catch a beer with you.
Oh, yeah, that would be great. You, Roger Stone, and the others. So thank you very much. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, Steve.